Hello, everyone. It is Jamie Joe right here at Madlet Musings, and we're all excited today because we have with us Amanda Dykes. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Jamie. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me.
It's always so fun to have you and talk about your books because your books are, I don't know how to describe it. They're just different. I like different, but it's a
Well,
good
thank
different.
you. It's funny. Sometimes people will say, like, how do you choose your settings, or why, if they're being, straightforward and blunt, why do you choose different settings each time? Because
Mhm.
hop all over history and
Right.
all over time. And I'm like, I guess I'm a glutton for punishment because I have to start from scratch every single time. But I say that kind of tongue in cheek because I love the research and I love
hmm
learning something new
hmm
with every book.
I think that's one of the things I like about your books, though, is because we are going to get, I mean, you've been, what, to Italy, I'm trying to think of all the different places.
So there is started in Maine,
Right.
and then hopped over across the pond to England, and
Yep.
then France, and then Venice, and then now we're coming back to American soil for this one, which takes place in Colorado.
Colorado. Oh, how fun. And this one is called Born of Gilded Mountains, which great title, by the way.
Thank you. I wish I could take credit for it, but that was all from Bethany House, and I love what they came up with.
They do have the best titling people. I
Thank
my
you.
titles are rarely chosen. They usually like, no, Jamie, we don't want to call it the killing of the main character.
Your titles are incredible, though. I love them. They're the kind of title that stop you in your tracks and make you go, "Ooh, what's that all about?"
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, kudos to we're both published by Bethany House. So if as readers are listening to this, they're like, and yeah, that's why we're both talking about it because we have the same teams working on titles and they slay it.
Yeah, they're a great team.
Yes. Yes. So, what brought you back to American soil in this novel, and what brought you to Colorado? Because that's very different from
Yeah, so it
Maine.
was a couple different things. I felt I felt like so the previous two books we had been in World War I France, which was very,
Mhm,
very intense to research, just a very difficult time in history, and working with how do you incorporate the language into that while keeping
mhm.
it easily readable for American readers. And then right after that, I hopped over to Italy because why
Why
not
not?
continue the challenge? So same thing, you have to really work with the culture and the history and the language, and I think that that's an honor to get to do.
Mhm,
Um, but at the end of those two, I feel like I was in a way felt very privileged to have gotten to spend that time immersed in those worlds, but also felt ready to come home. And the mountains to me are home. I
Oh.
was born and raised right at the base of the Sierra Mountains,
Oh,
the Sierra
okay.
Nevada mountain range. And
Yeah.
so um, obviously that's not Colorado, but the geography, the terrain,
Mhm,
weather systems, all of that is very, even history as far as mining
mhm,
and influx of people for the mining and then the mass exodus of people after the mining dried up. It's all very similar between the two. And so at the same time, I had stumbled across on a rabbit trail. I just got curious about, I heard someone mention the town of Telluride.
mhm.
And so I thought, where is that? I want to know where that is. And so I looked it up. I knew it was in Colorado, but I didn't know where. And as I'm reading up on Telluride, I saw this mention in an article about something called the Galloping Geese. And if you hear galloping geese, you're probably gonna go like, "What's that?"
I just
So I
had
went
the
through the rabbit trail
weirdest
of research.
visual picture in my head.
I
Where
know.
is a
Let
galloping
me
geese?
let me picture. It is. Let me
No.
show you.
Yeah.
So, this vehicle right here, can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
It's a half. Oh, I got a little visitor here.
That's okay. We love little visitors.
My 3-year-old brought me a necklace. Thank you, Liam.
Oh, love it.
Um, so so I started the galloping geese were these vehicles that when the mining started to dry up in these boom towns in Colorado, the railroad had the mail contract, and it was these towns are pretty remote, and so the railroad really was like the lifeblood of the region,
Right.
bringing people and supplies and mail and communication and exporting things too. And so they needed the railroad, and yet because there were so many people leaving and so many businesses shuttering, it was very expensive to keep. It was too expensive to justify keeping it running.
Hmm.
So they all, kind of put their heads together and thought, how do we solve this? And they came up with this really unique vehicle called the Galloping Goose. The name came later, after the concept, but it is, um, started with a 1930s limousine, and they like chopped off the back of it and hooked on. They outfitted it to be able to carry cargo and a few passengers,
Oh my
and
goodness.
they took off the wheels and they fitted it with, all the equipment it needed to be able to run on the existing tracks to these mountains. So they got rid of all the huge expense involved in operating the trains and got it down to where this vehicle could operate with one person instead of all the people it took to
Okay.
operate a train.
Hmm.
And there were, over the time, there were seven of them, the Galloping Geese. And I don't know what it is about vintage vehicles, but they just kind of capture my heart,
That's so
especially when
cool.
they're really unique like that. And I thought, I think this is it. I think this is something to do with my next story. And so then, um, the writer wheels got turning in
Hmm.
my brain. What if this vehicle carrying a bag of mail what if there's one lost bag of mail? What would be the ramifications of one lost bag of mail for all the people around? Maybe good ramifications, maybe bad, maybe some, um, the cause of long lost friendships, all kinds of things to explore. And so I got to work writing that, and it became a pen pal story.
Oh,
Starts
fun.
off with two pen pals who get connected in grade school and then grow up to become best of friends, but they've never met in real life. And then, long story short, bag of mail gets lost. Other things happen. They lose touch. They don't even realize they wonder if both are even still alive and go on to live their own lives. And then there's a unlikely, um, but fun, I hope really fun adventure treasure hunt that ensues as they eventually try to track down this mailbag. And it does have big ramifications for a lot of people. So that's that's the short story of the long novel of Born of Gilded Mountain.
Right. But it's just enough of a short story for me to go, I need to read this book. That's,
Good.
that's
Good.
good. That's good. You hooked me. I love the concept of a little bit of a treasure hunt included. Um, and I bet you, knowing this is an Amanda Dykes book, I could be wrong, but I'm thinking treasure hunt has kind of like plural meaning. Like it's not
Oh,
just right, right. Yeah, I knew this was, it's gonna be
totally.
treasures in all kinds of different ways, right?
Oh, definitely. Yes, I sometimes I think I go overboard on the symbolism, and
Mm-mm.
I think haven't
That's
you
why
done
we
a
love
treasure
you.
you're so nice. You did a treasure hunt book, didn't you? There was a
I
lost
did.
treasure.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
I bet you did the same thing.
A little bit.
I
Not
haven't
quite
had the
as
joy of reading that one yet, but I want to.
mine was a little more like try not to die symbolism.
Well, it's the beautiful difference between the two of us. Um, yeah, I think there is a lot of natural symbolism in a
Yeah,
treasure hunt.
there is.
Just
Yeah.
or what is your treasure?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
um, so much, I think, not just in treasure hunts, but in life in general, of just how much of what we're looking for is actually found on the journey and not
Mm,
necessarily in the end
right.
product that we think we're looking for.
Right.
That kind of question. So it
Yep.
turned out to be a story that explored a lot about restoration and
Mm,
um, redemption, of course, and all those good things.
all those good things. That's so cool. And you also have the relationship then between these two pen pals, which is probably their own form of treasure. Now, are they two female pen pals, or is it male female, or
Yeah.
two guys, or how does that work?
So the way this came to be was 2 books ago. Yours is the Night, which is
Mm-hmm.
my World War book, was
Mm-hmm.
all about kind of male camaraderie. There is
Mm-hmm.
a female viewpoint character, but most of it's soldiers. And so
Right.
it was what I call my brotherhood book because they're sort
Mm,
of a band of brothers.
yeah.
And I thought, I've explored a lot of different relationships throughout the novels, but I've never really explored a really close knit, like female sisterhood type relationship. So that's what I wanted to do with this one.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really special to get to do.
That's cool. That's cool. Now, do you have natural sisters in your own life where you have experience with sisterhood, or how has sisterhood affected you personally?
I'm very blessed. I have one sister who I grew up with. We're 2 years apart. And then I have 3 sisters-in-law, and then I have friends who are as close as sisters,
Mhm.
you know how that goes, and
Yep.
so I think it really is a gift, and when that I don't know, as a society, sometimes we don't always put the spotlight on those
Right.
familial relationships, but I think they sometimes deserve the spotlight.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Do
think
you
they
think
do.
that?
Yeah. I think too sometimes sisterhood gets a little bit of a curious, I don't want to say a bad rap, but it's kind of like a curious rap because you've got the conflicts between women where there's almost a nitpicky, I kind of look, I was told my husband,
Right.
I said, sometimes for me being in a group of women is like walking into a chicken coop. They're all talking at the same time and pecking at each other, and it's not a warm, fuzzy feeling.
Right, yeah. No, it's definitely a tendency that's there, and I remember feeling that way, just especially, like, back in high school and
Hmm.
middle everyone's trying to find their place and trying to figure out how that all works,
Hmm.
and I think it's true that, we can succumb to those tendencies, but you also see these just shining examples of what the purpose of these relationships and what the potential of them actually is, of people
Right.
showing up for each other and entering into each other's broken hearts or broken places and being there for each other in a way that I think we sometimes miss. Maybe we don't, maybe it's our society, maybe it's our culture. We don't always have like the lens or we're not looking for opportunities for how can we be there for each other.
Mm.
But when we do, those opportunities are there and those friendships can be so beautiful.
Hmm.
Just to know, like that verse about a friend loves at all times and a brother is born for adversity.
Right.
I think that applies to sisterhood too. And there's a lot of adversity, so there's a lot of chance
Yeah.
for us to be there for each other.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You had mentioned that one of the main themes that came from the book was taken from that scripture in Joel that says, I will restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten. How does that apply to the general theme and storyline of this book?
Yeah, that was interesting. I originally that theme and that verse kind of I wanted to explore it as these friends find their way back to each other.
Hmm.
And what do you do with the time that was lost? And
Oh,
how do
yeah.
you move beyond that? But then I was just so surprised because by the time all the rounds of writing and editing were finished finally, I stepped back and I don't know if you experienced this, but I feel like I was so close to so zoomed in on the
Hmm.
writing process that I didn't really notice this unfolding, but that theme, it's like it buried itself in almost every single character and every single storyline
Hmm.
in ways I never planned.
Hmm.
And it's, what happens to somebody who, for example, there's a character who never knew a mother, really never knew
Mm.
a nurturing home growing up. And that's something that you kind of just think, well, that was my story. I missed my
Right.
chance for
Right.
is, if you're an adult, how do you go back and change that? You can't necessarily like in a linear time travel type way.
Right.
But what happens if God takes that character and places them in this community where every need is met and people show up for you in a way nobody else ever has, and
Hmm.
you dreamed of having someone sing you a lullaby, a
Mm.
simple dream of a lullaby, and you never knew it, and you're a grown woman now, and you missed your chance for that, and then
Yeah.
you find out that years and years ago, someone wrote a song for you, and you never this happens in the book, so I don't wanna give
Oh,
away too much
oh,
about
oh, I
the
love it.
story, but it's that kind of thing, like, how God is outside time, and so where we see things as impossible,
Hmm.
He can so easily make a way, and because it looks so impossible to us, it's so extraordinarily beautiful when it
Right.
happens, because
Right.
it completely takes us by surprise.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's that theme of restoration and restoring the years the locusts have eaten, and it happens in our lives too. So my hope for readers is that it might just whisper some hope into their hearts.
I love that. And I love that in conjunction with what we were talking about with sisterhood and then the being there for each other. I got a text this morning from a friend because one of my books released today, and you know how it is on book release days, you'll get texts and all of them mean something. It's not like one is more
Yeah.
important than the other. But I got one today, and it was just that moment where, like like you were saying, where there's a little gap inside of you, and then somebody just goes, oops, I'm going to fill it. And all it
Yes.
was happy book launch day. Your mama is celebrating with you.
Oh
And
my
my
gosh.
mom's, my mom moved to heaven 3 years ago, in about almost 3 years ago, 3 weeks from now. So
Wow.
that's just something that's a little raw in the back of my mind every time
Yeah.
this year. And to get a text from a woman who's a little bit of a mentor and to just kind of step in that gap and say, Mama's proud. It was
Oh my
just
goodness.
perfect.
It brings tears to my eyes. Just,
Yeah.
that someone would think of that and someone would think of not just a momentous occasion, but a momentous occasion in the context of your life and the
Hmm.
things that are important to you and the
Hmm.
losses that you know. And to be known at that level and noticed at that level and to know you're on somebody's heart in such a specific way
Hmm.
is so beautiful.
It is. It is. And I love that concept. Like now I'm really anxious to read about this lost lullaby.
I hope you like it. I hope people like
I'm
it.
sure we will. But I love those tender things that we find within story that really do show that innate need within each person to, yes, there's an innate need to be filled with the love of our Heavenly Father. But I
Yeah,
think that's also pictured in the community that he puts around us.
absolutely. Yeah,
And yeah, that encouragement that comes from that. So
I love that.
me too. And now my mind is blank because I'm just mulling over it.
Oh, I'm so glad you shared what happened today. And I think too, the beautiful thing about that is we don't always even recognize that the gap is
Right.
there.
Right.
And until somebody speaks into it and then it's like floods it
Hmm.
and it touches you so deeply that you're like, oh wow.
And it's so crazy too how the Lord uses stuff like that because I know it wasn't my mom that sent me that text. And yet all day today, I felt like I got a text from mom.
Gosh, that's so neat.
And I love how the Lord does that. And, sometimes we talk about eternity and how distant and how far it is. And then little things bring that back, and you're like, this is what God meant
Yeah,
relationships to be like, you know?
absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Cool. Okay. That was special. I like that. Okay.
Special and happy release day, by
Oh,
the way.
thanks. That wasn't meant to be a plug. It was just like I had to explain
No,
why.
since we're talking about it, why don't you tell us the title of your book? What's the title of
The
your book?
title of this book is Night Falls on Predicament Avenue.
Such a great
So
title.
it was a fun title. This one was funny because, and I won't go into it for too much because this is about you, but it was funny about the titling concept
Yeah.
because we struggled to get a short enough title so that it
Oh,
didn't
wow.
drive the graphic designer batty trying to figure out how to fit all the words on there. And
Oh, I
it's
think it's great.
probably one of the longest ones we've had.
Oh, I think it's amazing. So did you sorry, I'm like swapping
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 roles.
roles here, but
Okay.
I'm so curious. Did you come up with the street name, Predicament Avenue? Was that already in the story?
Yes. In fact,
Yeah.
I came up with the address. The address was the first thing I got about this book was 322 Predicament Avenue.
Oh my goodness. Isn't that interesting the
Yeah.
ways stories come to us, like the little snippets,
Yeah.
and it's something so random?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very
Oh, I
random.
love
And I wanted the 322 on the cover, but something had to go. So we figured the
oh,
house
yeah.
number was probably not critical to communicating the story.
It will shine in its place within the text.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Okay. So speaking of settings,
Mhm.
what made you pick Colorado there? Because if you were born, was it really the Galloping Goose that made you have to move it there because of historical purposes?
Yeah, yes, because that's the only place they were, and I think that's
Okay.
part of the draw of it is that these things were made in the depths of the mountains where they really had to be innovative and resourceful and just use whatever they had on hand. They were
Yeah.
welding together like scrap metal from the railroad to make the bases of the frames. It's really amazing. And yeah, in order to be because it's so unique to the region,
Hmm.
I think I wanted to respect that by keeping the story in the region, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Oh,
And
totally.
there are similar motor cars in different places that have cropped up throughout the
Hmm.
US, but nothing called the Galloping Geese. So
Galloping
that's
geese.
why I picked Colorado. Plus, it's just
Oh,
beautiful.
I
It's a
love it. Oh,
beautiful place.
Colorado's gorgeous. Colorado. So where in Colorado is this then? Because you mentioned a town that sounded really familiar, but I can't remember what it was called now.
So It's in this, they call it the San Juan region
Hmm.
of the Rockies. So the San Juan Mountains are a range within the Rocky Mountains,
Right.
and it's farther south. Usually you hear the Rockies of Colorado, you think Denver, Colorado
Hmm.
Springs. This is farther south than that. Um, and so the towns that are there, people might be familiar with are Telluride, Ouray, Silverton, Durango,
Okay.
and there's
Yep.
some of the railroads are still operational over
Hmm.
there,
Hmm.
and just a really, really, really pretty place. Um, my cat.
I know we both have cat issues going
Yeah,
on.
cat,
Oh, you're
cat
so
cast,
pretty.
cat cast.
Kitty, kitty.
So I got to go there to travel just to
Hmm.
research a little bit, and I was fortunate to be there in the summer, and they get these summer rainstorms,
Hmm.
which rainstorms in the mountains make everything magical.
Do
And I got to see the waterfalls, and
love
we
it.
chased down a galloping goose, and
Are they still
just
running?
so all 7 are still in existence, but one of them is a replica. So
Okay.
number 1 is a replica, and that's we went to Telluride first to try
Hmm.
and find one because there's one that runs sometimes through the town. They have re-outfitted it to run on regular roads,
Okay.
and they do like a tourist thing.
Sure.
And so that's where we went first, and we couldn't find it anywhere. And I had searched, schedules and locations, and we couldn't find it. It's not a big town. It's a beautiful town. So I'm so glad we went because there's waterfalls and trams and green mountains all around you.
Mm, sounds gorgeous.
So quaint and beautiful. It's got kind of a Victorian charm, like brick buildings.
Right.
Uh, but we weren't staying in Telluride because the lodging tends to be very expensive there
Hmm.
because it's so beautiful, and we had our whole family with us, so we were staying in a nearby town,
Hmm.
and we on the way from Telluride to the nearby town, which was also beautiful, which was Ouray. It's Ouray, Ouray.
Hmm.
Gorgeous place,
I've
highly
actually been to
recommend.
Ouray. Yep.
Have you really?
I have. I
No
have.
way! It's such a
Yes.
small place, that's really neat that you would have been there.
It's tiny. We had my grandmother had well actually my grandpa's war buddy from World War II had moved there. And so when I was in my teens, we went and visited and stayed at their house right there in Ouray.
Oh, it's such a beautiful place. I'm so glad you got to go.
Mm, it's
It's
gorgeous.
like a river running through it
Yes.
and canyon walls all around you. Amazing. So between Telluride and Ouray, there's a little town called Ridgeway.
Okay.
And we're driving through, and we've been driving all night and half a day already. And so we're all exhausted. And I'm thinking, I know there's another one around here somewhere at a museum, but I don't know where. And we needed to get to the hotel because everyone was tired. We're
Hmm.
driving through, and then my husband goes, "There it is." It's like right over on the side of the road.
Oh, nice.
His old house that's been turned into a museum, and there, sure enough, was Galloping Goose number 1.
Oh my
So that was
gosh.
my first Galloping Goose I got to see, and, they do run one of them, um, on the Durango and Silverton
Hmm.
Railroad
Hmm.
still, and they also sometimes run there are 3 of them that live. To me, they feel like living creatures.
They're very alive.
So
Yes.
in Denver or Golden, Colorado, which is right outside Denver,
Hmm.
at the Colorado Railroad Museum, and they do rides every now and then at the museum.
Okay.
And then there's one that has made its way out of Colorado and over to California, and it is at Knott's Berry Farm, the amusement park,
Okay.
and they run it during their non-peak months.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
because they do the big steam train during the other months,
Sure.
but I chased it down because I wanted to see it so much, and it was not during the times they usually run it. So it really took some pounding the pavement and trying to, tell people my story who are operating the ride. And is there any
Oh.
chance I can go and see it? And these people took pity on me, and they took me back to the roundhouse, the railroad shed where it was, and they let me climb around in it and sit in the driver's seat and
Oh,
they
how
fired us so
cool.
we could honk the horn. And it was just, which the horn, by the way, looks like a brass trumpet mounted on the outside. I am telling you, the charm on these things is
Oh my
amazing.
gosh. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that is a very long answer to your question about whether they're
No, I
still
love it.
running.
I love it.
Some of
No, I
them.
love the long answers because you get so much more interesting information with long answers, right? Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm thinking too, like you're talking about how they're like welding and putting all these pieces together. And I'm thinking in my brain going, and this was the day before building codes and OSHA and all
Right.
this stuff. So when
Right.
you really think about the ingenuity that went into like hodgepodging these things to work.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And also the ingenuity, because it's like the mechanisms and the automobiles themselves, but it's also all the elements they're facing and the steep
Mhm.
grades of the mountains and planning for eventualities. What happens if the brakes stop working?
Ooh,
They can be prepared for everything.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so much thought and creativity
Oh
went
man,
into it.
this is
Yeah.
great. This is great. Oh, I love it. Okay, so we have another Amanda Dykes book coming out, and it's coming in
Yes.
June, and people can get it on pre-order and have it all ready in their mailboxes as soon as it releases. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know when this is airing, but if this pops up, if this goes live before the book releases,
mhm.
we do have pre-order specials like bonus goodies going on.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so
And
it's
that's
that.
through, is it just through one location or how do the pre-orders
So
work?
it is there's one landing page at my website.
Okay.
So amandadykes.com
Mm-hmm.
slash BOGM for Born of Gilded Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
BOGM pre-order, all one word, no
Okay.
hyphen.
Okay.
And so what they'll see there is there's one giant giveaway that any pre-order can enter, whether you've ordered through Amazon, Baker Bookhouse, Walmart, whoever.
Mm-hmm.
You can enter for this kind of big giveaway that is going to be the only autographed book available through pre-orders,
Ooh.
and a kind of mountain flannelly picnic blanket and a camp mug that's like blue with the white speckles, like the
Yes.
camp mug.
Yes.
And what else? There's something else, I think. Oh, a sticker. So these custom
Mm-hmm.
stickers for the book. And then there's also I think the first 150 pre-orders through Baker Bookhouse get their own special bonus. So
Ooh.
it's a foil printed bookmark, it's the sticker, it is an envelope that will contain a cipher. So this comes back to the treasure hunt aspect.
That's more and more
So
interesting. Don't worry, I'll make
it's
sure this airs so
oh,
that people can take advantage of the pre-order.
like things like National Treasure, where you get to decode things. It's going to contain a cipher that is almost identical to one that the characters are trying to figure out, but slightly different, so that you can see how it actually works. Um,
Fun.
so it'll be a paper inside of an envelope that you have to do something with. So it'll come
Okay.
with instructions. And so bookmark, sticker, cipher, and stationery in an envelope because it's a letter writing book.
Oh,
So there you go.
I love it.
First 50 orders get those bonus goodies if you order through Baker Bookhouse, which, as probably all of your listeners already know, tends to be the best deal anyway.
Yes. Yes, because they do free shipping and 40%
Yeah,
off
it's
Bethany House
amazing.
books too. So yeah, it's a great place to pre-order. And now we just have to make sure this airs before, the release date, which we will definitely do because people are going to want to take advantage of that. And I'm like, Jamie's like, just a second here before I end the podcast. I need to go make a pre-order.
It was fun. I like putting those things together.
Yeah.
So,
You're so good at them. I'm like, here's some
oh,
bookmarks you
thank
can
you.
pop into a book. And then there's the Amanda Dykes pre-orders, like stationery and all this. I love it.
No,
I love it.
you're amazing. But I also my books only come out once every 18 months. So I
Yeah,
feel
it
like
is a
when
little bit
this
longer.
comes
Yeah.
out, then I want to make a deal out of it.
Do
I
a lot
like
of it.
I want to
Yeah.
make it special for the readers if I
Yes.
can,
Yes.
because they're so patient with me because I'm a very, very slow writer.
Well, your books have a lot of depth and layers and
Thank
imagery,
you.
and so they should take longer. I think
Well,
you're due
thank
that.
you.
You're due that because they're
That
the
is
quality
very
that
kind.
comes out.
I tend to say I know writers who write much faster than I do who have tons of depth and symbolism and meaning in their books. But you're very kind to say that. It makes me feel better.
Well, you know what? God gives us each and all our own timetables to work off of and
That's
our own set of gifts. And so I think readers
true.
of Amanda Dykes have long learned that patience only brings lusciousness. So,
Thank you. You're very gracious.
oh man. Well, I am so glad that you were gracious enough to be on the podcast with us today. And
For having me. This
we will
was
have
fun.
you again in another 18 months with the next
Yeah,
one.
awesome. Thank Thank you so much.